Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. Well, I'll just say this. It's been 10 days of constant, sorry, not constant, but off and on rain in Buffalo. It's the middle of July. I would like to see the sun.
That's hard. I've had a lot of sunny days here. Sorry, my only quickie thing pre-show is if you want to see like a happy day for me and a sad day at the same time, go to my Instagram account and at Sportsology, and you'll see me and like my best friend on his birthday, Mr. and Mrs. Met, and then my black jersey for the Mets and my black boot that I have on my foot now that I have to drag it around Citi Field. So you get to see that. As far as baseball goes, though, it's hard for me to believe that teams like the Mets and the Phillies are not at 85% group vaccination rate yet. And it's really stung the Phillies because, you know, they lost Aaron Nola and Alec Boehm, their starting third baseman. Now, what's interesting is when you hear some of the players' comments about it, Kev, they've been blaming other injuries on the vaccine. So Didi Gregorius blamed his injury on the vaccine. One of their relievers, Archie Bradley, blamed his oblique injury on the vaccine. A pitcher, Kunstler, who's out, blamed the Johnson & Johnson vaccination because it made his body shut down, and then he hurt his neck as a result. Like, I would think 10-year-olds would have a better handle on this. It's hard for me to believe that grown men, human beings, have these bizarre opinions, and you would think Joe Girardi would just invite in a doctor to address all of this, so maybe they could, get the team to turn around and get the rest of the vaccinations. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, no. Well, and all you got to do is just pay attention to what's happening, and on all channels, you hear doctors talking about all the people that we have in the hospital now is all people who weren't vaccinated. Now we have serious cases, and it's not all 65-year-olds anymore. No. So yeah, I mean, people just don't get it, and that's just too bad.
And in all forms of life. I mean, you've got I mentioned earlier, I saw the interview, Russ. Eric Clapton said that when he had the first vaccine, that it caused like numbness in his hands that didn't go away for a couple weeks. And now he basically said, well, I've gotten a waiver from the doctor to never have the second vaccine. Am I okay? Well, you're going to get COVID. You're in your 70s. You've had health problems in your past.
Yeah, that only makes you like 60% safe. Good luck with that.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't get it. So it shouldn't be political, and it shouldn't be born out of ignorance. Because they've gone out of their way to try to explain, why you need it too. But on a different subject, I want to talk about baseball too, Russ. And I kid, especially Mike, but Russ too, about you guys pay far more attention to things about jerseys and caps and things. It seems almost obsessive to me. Like I never even think about that when I'm watching a game. I mean, I do like jerseys, but I might say, oh, I like that, but that's my 15 seconds. I don't put it on my list of things I hate.
Right.
But I have my own obsession that you guys probably don't do. And that is that one of the reasons I love sports is I get caught up in the minutia of competition. I enjoy it. And even though I want my team to win, I'll still watch, even though my Detroit Tigers were a bad team last year. I watched almost every game because I just like baseball and everything. And one of the reasons I do is things like I pay attention to swing and miss rates, and whether guys swing at bad pitches, pitch selection. I'm fascinated by what they have to do. And one of the things that has bothered me this year, and I know the analytics say that the bunt should go somewhere and die, the sacrifice bunt. But to me, when I think, especially in the new extra inning scenarios where you have a guy on second, to me that situation is very similar to in the NFL. When they have in the college game when they have the playoff overtime and you start and whether they score first.
Right.
Then that dictates what you do. I think if you bunt the guy to third and then you score first, it puts pressure on that other team to do that. And I understand why you just kind of throw away the analytics at that point in time. And the argument against it is so many guys now strike out so much. But I think they got a better chance of laying it down than they, I know some guys can't bunt, but they can at least try to get it down. And then you have at least a guy on third with one out.
Now, I'll give you the two scenarios for bunting. The first one is, so if you have a man on first and you want to bunt him over just to get him in scoring position, you can get into scoring position with one out in Major League Baseball. You have probably a 70% chance of getting a run. Now, what is the odds that player is going to strike out, and what are the odds that player is going to hit into a double play? So that's why some teams fall back on we're okay with the strikeout because it's not hitting into a double play, and then lose the perspective of, well, getting that runner in scoring position and that first run that you're actually talking about is massive, and even getting them to third is important if you could do it with one out. If you can get to third with one out, then you're probably 80% or 70% that you're going to get a run.
Well, that's way too high.
Okay, 60. Maybe it's 60.
I bet it's less than 50.
I'll look it up.
I don't understand why major league teams, and maybe it's too late for some of the players that are in the major leagues right now, but major league teams aren't stressing learning how to bunt in the minor leagues right now based on just the shifts that these teams are using. For example, look at the Yankees had a shift on, I think it was Alvarez, the big left-handed power hitter for the Astros. They had a shift on for him because he's a pull hitter. They had three infielders playing to the right side of second base, and the third baseman, or I think the shortstop, was playing at the shortstop position. So basically, there was no third baseman. Okay, you want Alvarez to hit a home run. I understand that. But if he knows how to lay down a bunt, he's guaranteed a single and maybe a double if he lays down a bunt and gets it past the pitcher. How is that not analytically smart or profound when you're basically being given a base hit? So, I mean, honestly, I know, okay, they'd rather hit the home run and score more runs that way. But I don't know. I mean, and especially not power hitters, if they're shifting that much, Russ, we remember guys like Brett Butler and Keith Hernandez who hit to the opposite field. Derek Jeter who hit to right field all the time. Maybe the shifts wouldn't be as profound against them, but I don't know. I mean, they're giving you a base. They're giving you a base runner if you just know how to lay it down.
Yeah, I mean, back when I was growing up, and I have the answer for you, Kev, too. Back when I was growing up, there was a Kingman shift. I know back in the day there was a Kluszewski shift.
Yeah,
you maybe had 10 shifts ever in baseball for certain players. And yeah, I just don't bet on the odds of it. But here, Kev, here are the odds for, and this is baseballwithr.wordpress.com. Did a nice job. If you have second and third with no out, right, which is a situation that does happen, you're likely, this is a funny thing, I didn't realize, you're likely to get 1.42 runs scored in the remainder of that inning. So if it's 0 outs, it's a 0.53. If you've got a runner on third, Kev, if 1 out, it's 0.29, and 2 outs, it's 0.11. So,
well, I just looked it up too. It's 42% chance of scoring if you have a runner on second base and 1 out. Which is
second. Okay, I was giving the third. So yeah, okay. All right, so it's lower.
Yeah, second. If you yeah, it is. It is. It's 40. I knew it was less than 50 because that's all tied into the. But here's the thing about, and Mike's point is a great one, about plus in every other sport, especially in tennis, you drop a few drop shots in so that the guy, have to come in and, he can't stay back as far as he is. In football, you throw underneath for a while so that they've got to respect that. So, they can't play way back off your wide receivers. Well, in baseball, we have the same opportunity here. If you want that shift away from you, and because a lot of guys just hit it right into the shift, then drop a few bunts down and they'll have to move. Right. Once you prove you can do it. I don't understand why there's when was the last time that you've seen guys consistently make an effort to do that, to destroy the ship.
No, you don't. I've seen just sparingly moments where a guy finally decides to do it. Someone did it against the Mets. Newman did it against the Mets this weekend. So here's an interesting thing. So in 2021, it looks like the worst team for double plays is like 0.76. So I guess it's not even, one per game. So if it's not one per game and I have a 42% chance of getting a run with a runner on second, then honestly, I'm still going to try and do that then rather than worry about the double play and risking another strikeout. Like I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and there are plenty of hitters in this league that are striking out at a 40% rate.
Oh, yeah.
So
a couple of them on the Yankees. And we welcome Indiana Jones to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I expect a rock to come down, rolling down for it.
I know, at any moment, right? I know. Yes, I mean, we're doing some redecorating of my office today as we move some things around. And, so I'm out in the good old dining room.
Yeah, I see the Foxes are enjoying the rink in the yard. That's
yes. This is the front yard, so it's
Speaking of Foxes,
I guess you can see it better from there.
Yeah, now I can see it's the
Eklund, your son will enjoy this story.
Yeah.
I looked out my front door, and there were 2 baby turkeys walking down my driveway. So I told my wife, and she had one of my dogs out in the backyard, and she discovered there was a mom and 7 baby turkeys out there. Unbeknownst to her, 2 of her other babies were out in my front yard. Well, and I have 5 acres. So when all of a sudden in the front yard, the 2 baby turkeys said, wait a minute, mom's not here.
Yeah.
Like, where's mom? So they hauled tail feathers to the backyard and got in. And I asked my wife, where did they get in the line? And she said 8 and 9. Like they did cut lines and try to get in the middle. They were the 8th and 9th turkeys.
Baby turkeys are very territorial.
And they ended up just walking. I have 2 acres of woods, and they walked off into our woods. So maybe they live there.
We have some wild turkeys near me too, so I see them once in a while.
Yeah. So we have.
I had never seen a baby turkey though.
No, I've never seen a baby one.
That was the first time.
Yeah, they are funny. Like they can be, of course, pretty scary. Turkeys can be very territorial, and they can jump in at any point. I was chased around a turkey in like Edison. You chased by a turkey in Edison for like a half hour one time at a Red Roof Inn. That's another day.
You think the turkey is bad? How about the stuffing?
Was the turkey staying at the Red Roof Inn, or
the turkey might have been staying at the Red Roof Inn? It did not want me to get anything out of the back of my car. I went out there and just trying to find.
You must have given off a vibe that you were scared though. Like you shouldn't have been scared of that turkey.
Well, there was like 4 feet tall. I mean, it's not like something that it's a little. It's like the closest thing we have to like a velociraptor when you think about it.
You could have gotten like your bag out of the trunk and said, "Back off, turkey," and
Yeah, I always mistake a turkey for a velociraptor there.
Yeah, that's we've just created a new all-time Hockey Buzz highlight. The comparing of a turkey to
that tops my take on country music. So
it's close for sure. Probably a turkey in the backyard. Now the dogs are interested in something. In the front yard, the dogs are interested in something. Anyway, all right, here we go. All right, that's not good. No, come on, you can't do that.
It might be a turkey.
All right, here we go. Today's date is the Hockey World is Monday, July 12th, 2021. Right? Yeah.
I'm Michael Agello, and please stop raining and stop barking too.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. Mets got a good pick at number 10 yesterday. I'm happy.
I'm Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz, and I'm actually glad that it has been raining because we've had too many hot days in a row.
I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes here every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings, goings in the hockey world. And we are going to get to some protective list talk this week because nothing gets a party going like that. And we're also going to talk other things too. But I was a little late to the call today because I was on with a GM who told me that even though he's not involved in this thing, that he is hearing that the Seth Jones stuff is heating up pretty fast, and he sort of explained to me why the change in acceleration for this, and I thought this was kind of interesting. So, as you know, the long feeling has always been that Seth Jones wants to play for Colorado. That's where he's from, and there was a belief among other teams that he would only sign an extension with Colorado for sure, and otherwise wanted to go to free agency to probably sign with Colorado.
Well, I heard 2 teams, but that Colorado was definitely one of them.
Colorado's been the long I haven't heard another team at
I mean, that was our gut feeling on the show that was his number one landing spot all along.
Right. And now Colorado, of course, they have their own set of issues, and so the feeling is that other teams got frustrated. They started, although they are allowed to talk to the Jones camp and have been for a while now about contracts like that, they're not really getting a great feeling for it and they're getting a good vibe for it. So he said what's happening now, though, is Colorado is looking like they could make a deal for Jones without actually extending him. And that Colorado might be the only team that's out there willing to do that. Maybe partially thinking, he's going to sign her anyway, partially. But I think more than that, from what this guy was saying, at least, is there's a feeling that Colorado would like to see him play another year before they agree to the big contract. Having his play fell off a little bit last year, and we've seen things like I'm not going to compare him to Erik Karlsson, but we've seen other contracts like
what
that.
What kind of assets are they going to give up for that, though? I mean,
right. I mean, they are a team that has a ton of assets, right? And they're one of the few teams that has some prospects that they probably don't have a spot to put. They've got so much depth that they could actually be the team that does that. Now to finish this whole concept out, Mike, so you understand, to finish the concept out. If you're Seth Jones and you think that, and you feel like that's happening, okay, the Colorado is willing to just trade for me, but not extend me right away. That makes you a little bit nervous because, okay, if they're not going to extend us right away, then I can still play there for less money. What if I get hurt? What if this happens? What if that happens? Right. And suddenly maybe your thinking changes in terms of negotiating with other teams a little bit, and saying, okay, maybe we will talk extension more. And that's where he feels it is right now. And he feels like that because of the way that things played out, that there's a little bit more pressure on Jones at this point.
Well, okay. And I want Kevin to give his perspective, but the only thing I look from the Colorado situation is if they're saying, okay, we're going to trade for him no matter what, not long-term, just for 1 year, that's going to affect obviously the return that Columbus is going to get for Jones. I think we mentioned somebody like Sam Girard as part of the deal because Girard is locked up long-term and Columbus would probably want somebody who's locked up for a number of years. And also that clears money to be able to pay Seth Jones long-term, but it also clears money for them to pay Makar long-term. And that might be, okay, we'll get to Seth Jones, but our motivation here is to sign Makar to the long-term deal.
Well, Landeskog too.
And Landeskog too. So, I mean, that's possible, but I don't know whether he doesn't have any no trade or no move protection. He's going to go where Columbus trades him. And if everybody is under the mindset, Kevin, that it's a 1 year deal, 1 year, and then you let him walk, nobody's going to be paying a lot for that because it's a limited window.
Well, I guess it depends on your definition of a lot. I mean, we see every trade deadline on rentals, people paying, pretty big fees to get them. We've seen, first round picks and a prospect and a second round pick or a third round pick. So, I mean, they'll get, I think your point's well taken. I mean, they're not going to get 3 first round picks or, your best prospect and all that, but they're still going to, probably do fine with that. That's interesting. So you kind of called his bluff, Seth Jones' bluff, that he wouldn't sign with anywhere. And then once you did that, then he thought, well, wait a minute, I just assumed Colorado would sign me or extend me, and now he's worried about that. I don't know. I mean, we see players all the time, risk. I mean, Taylor Hall just did it last year. Yeah, risk playing somewhere on a 1 year deal. So that. I don't know. I mean, that certainly is intriguing, and it's probably true. But we've seen a lot of players that have, gone. I mean, you do that all the time at the end of your deal. I mean,
the only thing is, Kev, it did dawn on me that with this happening to the negotiations, it wouldn't shock me if John Davidson says to Jarmo, you know what? Let's get him playing this year. And we'll trade him at the deadline when he's hot. And maybe
that would shock me, because then it's the team taking the risk.
I know, but I mean, at some point
they have to get something for him.
Oh no, they'll get something for him even if it's at the deadline. But I guess but
he could get hurt.
He could get hurt. That's the risk.
Yeah.
Okay,
team can't take that risk. Like, Seth Jones can take it, but
yeah,
he can't take it.
No, that's a fair point.
They have to trade him now. Like, get what they can.
I was just sent this by one of one of the guys I really trust in the NHL too, who's watching the show right now. Thank you very much. And he said this, which I thought is interesting. He said, unless Seth Jones is happy with dropping to a second pair right D and playing behind Makar at 5-on-5, both of which will cost him points and could reduce his production in a contract year, he's better off elsewhere.
Well, I mean, everybody has said that. So
yeah, it makes sense.
True, but does he want to win a Stanley Cup?
That's true, but does he want to win?
Right.
Does he want to win? Does he want a chance to play for that?
But there's no guarantee he's going to win in Colorado.
I mean, I'll go back to what Walt Kachuk told me a million years ago, and he said he could have been a 30-goal scorer every year, but he took on a role because he thought like the 72 Rangers were going to win the Cup and other teams that he was on, so he took a defensive role, even though he could score 30 goals. So Jones is going to have to suck it up.
The scenario that you just said is the reason why, if he gets traded to Colorado, he wants the long-term extension, because he doesn't want to have to worry about getting 30 points playing behind him.
Correct.
So he needs to get his money. He needs to get paid. He needs to get his 8-year deal or 7-year deal or whatever now. And if that doesn't happen, then he has to be content with going someplace for 1 year, putting up big numbers and hitting the market next July and hitting a grand slam home run salary wise.
Well, I mean, but here's the bigger problem, Kev, for Columbus. What are the odds they're going to be able to move Laine and Seth Jones before the season starts?
I've been told they're not trying to trade Laine.
They're going to try and re-sign him?
That's what I've heard. So
wow.
That's the I mean, that is definitely that's the word on the street. Whether or not that is a little bit of gamesmanship or not, I'm not so sure, because I think but I think that there's so much to think about in this scenario, because I believe, and this is just based on what I know of Jarmo and what I know of that situation in general. The Jarmo has got to be very unhappy with the way things are right now, because of the fact that this is very uncontrollable at this point. He definitely likes to have more of a grasp on things. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jarmo says, "Yeah, sure, you can talk to Seth Jones," like they're letting people do now, but putting a drop dead time on that and saying, "Okay, now I'm not going to let anybody talk to Seth Jones' contract after September 1st or something." I don't know, something like that.
Well, here's another thought too that we should throw into the mix, because I think this is plausible. Okay, so Seth Jones decided, he wanted to play for Colorado, and so he assumes he would get a contract extension offer. So they didn't give it to him. So he's not so much worried about getting that contract but he's a little irritated that Colorado wouldn't do it. Could he just be saying, well, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll go elsewhere?
He could do that. Yeah.
I mean, I think he definitely has been making it out that he wants to go to the market, right? He wants to see what's out there on July 1st. That's what he wants to do. So
I think that's the scenario for that. Sorry, I was going to say, for both you guys, that may be the scenario for Chicago. If Seth Jones gets annoyed with Colorado, then turns to Chicago.
Well, okay, Chicago would be the perfect scenario for him if he wants to be the number one guy. I don't think Seth Jones is a power play point guy, so that would probably go to Boquist, Russ?
Yeah, we'll go to Adam Boquist. That's his special.
He's a pretty good power play point guy.
I know. He's gifted there. That's his one thing that he's really gifted at.
But what raises Seth Jones' stock more? Points or being the last piece on a team that wins a Stanley Cup? And if he's in a situation here where he's going to go someplace for 1 year, not a long-term situation, then it opens up the market to teams like Boston, to teams like Toronto, to teams like maybe Philadelphia, although I don't think Philadelphia is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender right now based on where they are right now. But I mean, 3 or 4 teams that you wouldn't have put in the Seth Jones sweepstakes that get opened up if he's purely a rental for 1 year.
Yeah, there definitely would be more. let's throw this out there. You know, it reminded me of one time Mike Keenan, and I brought this up before, but it certainly in this situation, it makes sense to bring it up again. Mm-hmm. And that is that he asked me one time how many minutes there were in a hockey game. And I laughed and I said, 60? And he goes, no, there's 360. You have 6 players that get to play 60 minutes each. So you got to manipulate your lineup to take your best advantage of that. So if you're thinking like that, like a lot of coaches do, boy, what a bonus it would be to have 2 guys who both are capable of playing, you know, plus 25, so 26, 27 minutes. Mm-hmm. So you got 54 minutes of time. You know, you're going to have 1 premium defenseman on the ice.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that
yeah. Well, but the power play. I mean, like, you know, people have mentioned that to me before about. But I think that is a big deal for guys. You know, they want their power play time. Seth Jones, you know, expects to be on the power play, and you know, you're going to have to sort of figure it out. Like, suddenly becomes, you know, if you're the second guy on a power play, no matter how hard you try to make it equal, right, it ain't going to work. So.
And he was second guy on the power play with Columbus because Werenski was the point guy in the top power play, and they never played 2 defensemen. So,
no.
I mean,
and in Jones' personal growth, when you think about it, he starts off with Nashville, right? And he was very much like the 4th defenseman on that team, you know, and he was there. He was really good, but they were so solid defensively that he wasn't the top guy in Nashville all the time until he gets traded, you know, and then he works his way into becoming not just the top guy in Columbus, one of the top guys in the league. So yeah, he's not going to be very happy with any kind of step backwards. You know, in his mind, I think he's worked his way.
Well, and he's probably looking for a step forward, don't you think?
Exactly.
He's probably hoping to get somewhere to be in a power play. But, you know, he wanted Colorado as one of his teams from the beginning, and he knew Makar is there. So, you know, maybe that bothers him less than
with 2/3 of the teams in the NHL, he's a top pairing defenseman. Very, very few teams is he a second guy. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, obviously, to see where he goes. But I think, and Zach, who's our Columbus blogger, is in the chat, and he said, you know, retaining 50% of if honestly, if Columbus wants to maximize their return, then retaining 50% and making him a $2.7 million cap hit, that would open up a whole bunch of teams, including the team that just won the Stanley Cup. Can you imagine Seth Jones being added to the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah. I mean, so you guys said something interesting about the Flyers not being a contender, and I believe I agree with you 100%. But I was doing some research in the last couple days and over the last week, trying to get my feel for every team, as I always do going into this time of year, and you know where they think they are. And the Flyers' perception that I get, Russ, I don't know if you've gotten this or not, but I get the perception very much that when they remember last season, they see it as we were in first place until COVID hit, and then all the bad things came down. And, you know, we were right there, you know, with everybody else, and that we should have been, you know, that we just got a whole lot of bad luck in the middle of the year, lost a whole lot of players, lost momentum, and things went downhill from like the outdoor game on, sort of. And they don't see themselves as last year as being a big problem, except for, you know, just a bunch of circumstantial things that happened. They still think they are one of the top teams.
No, I think that is the thinking around the team. I do think it's a little flawed, but I do think you're right. And that is the thinking. The issue is, though, and Fletcher's made this really clear, he's not going to bring on a Seth Jones if he's not signing a contract. That is the big holdup.
Oh, I agree with you there, but I think that it's just as interesting, and then just bringing it up I think that the perception out there among Flyers fans and among
fans is different than the team,
and among the league in general is very different than how the team sees it.
Yes.
And the teams always think they're better sometimes than they are, and you hear that situation, you know, but they really legitimately feel like they're writing off last year for COVID. I get more than any other team I talk to. I think the Flyers are that way.
And a lot of teams are like that. But the reality here is, and if you remember that long stretch before the shutdown in March, and then how they played in the playoffs, that was with Niskanen. And last year was without Niskanen, and we talked about it how many times that their defense was not the same without Niskanen. And if you look at the market right now, the guy who is probably the closest in terms of a Niskanen replacement that they can get for nothing is David Savard. Now, David Savard is going to cost probably $4.5 to $5 million at least in free agency, but it's better than trading a lot of assets for Seth Jones and not knowing whether you're going to be able to sign him or not.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they liked Savard even at the trade deadline, so I don't think that would be surprising at all. But yeah, they're a team that's in an interesting spot for sure. I wrote a couple things over the last couple of days.
I do have to tell you this.
Yeah.
Right now, at this moment, two people are pouring beer down Nikita Kucherov's throat at the same time.
Remember,
I just had to tell you that because this guy may be outdoing Alex Ovechkin.
Remember,
Oh my gosh.
him and Vasilevsky now have a sponsorship agreement with Bud Light. So if he's drinking Coors,
That's what he's drinking Bud Light.
he's
Mike.
breaking his agreement. Okay, he's drinking.
No. He's drinking Bud Light, and there looks to be like the old man, like his dad, Kucherov, and he looks like he's drinking just as much. So
It's Boris.
Are they doing? They're doing. This is not on the ocean.
No, they're on land now.
They're not tossing the cup back and forth from boat to boat, are they?
No, they're not doing that like the Buccaneers, and I told you they wouldn't. That was stupid. But that's, again, it shows you how little they think of the Lombardi Trophy compared to what hockey players think. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't end up at the bottom of the pool or something. They weren't going to do that, throwing it from boat to boat. They weren't going to do that.
Well, that's happened, That's the bottom of the pool thing.
We know that's happened.
Yeah. I think I might have written a book with that title.
You did right. It's a Kevin Allen book. That's exactly it.
I do.
Okay. That actually is a good. I'll give you the 30-second thing.
Yeah.
Phil Bork, who's now the radio guy, stood up on. There's a waterfall in Mary Lemieux's pool, and he stood up like he was King Kong over his head, and he threw it in the pool. Everybody laughed, thought it was funny, and then he just left it down to the bottom. It formed a suction on the bottom.
That's what Mike said the other day.
So they couldn't get it off.
Right.
It formed a suction. So they organized into diving teams, and it took them a long time to get it off the bottom of the pool because it was just stuck. And when they came back up, it was just kind of hanging by a thread. So if you look the next day at the parade, every time the guys would pick it up, they'd really put their hand
right.
They wouldn't show that it was hanging up by a thread.
Can you imagine the cup falling apart in the middle of a parade like that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's the story of the pool.
And didn't he actually etch his name inside of it somehow?
He did. Phil Bork. And the funny thing is then he ran into Dandino on a NHL cruise years later, and Dandino walked up to him and said, "I saw what you did." What are you talking about? And he says, "Yeah, you took off the bands and you etched your name underneath those bands in the thing." He goes, "How do you know that?" He says, "Because I did the same thing."
I mean, I'll tell you one more cup thing that's funny. Back in when the Rangers won the cup, Tim Robbins literally went into a cab and said, "Take me to the Stanley Cup." And the cab driver took him to the strip club that the Stanley Cup was at.
The one thing about it,
the cab drivers knew.
It can't go to a strip club anymore. That's one of the rules. They can't skydive either.
Yeah.
The one thing that always strikes me about that people always ask, because we've been fortunate enough to be on the ice, when the cup's being passed around from player to player and being right next to it. And the one thing that strikes me about it versus when I've seen it on display and people are like getting a picture taken with it, for some reason, and I know it's the same cup. I know there's actually two different cups. So I'm not sure if you're always seeing the same cup, but whatever. The one you see on the ice, because it has just been they polished it up real. I mean, they really did take a long time to make that thing look really nice for that presentation, right? That thing is shining fully. Has a definite, much more of an antique-y feel to it than you'd think it would. I don't know if you get that at all, but I get there's a real antique type aspect to the Stanley Cup when you're really close to it.
I will tell you this, yes. So in 2004, I got the cup passed to me in the locker room. One of the radio guys, because I covered the whole cup.
Down immediately, I hope.
Yeah, I just passed it right to the next guy. I was like shocked that they did it, but I was looking at it, and I do feel like what you're saying is true. Like it really, yeah, especially when you look at the top part of it.
There's it reminds you of something to be in your grandparents' house or something like that, in behind it, in a glass thing, kind of like this, like we have one of these things here, like that in that kind of thing, kind of feels like something like that.
It's this part of it that really makes it the antique.
Yeah. It has that
because that is still, like the number 2 one. I think that the oldest one's still in the Hockey Hall of Fame, But I think this is like the second one of these, and then they always change the rings, right? So
Yeah. So
and everybody should know too, when you're on the ice with the cup, or when the players are celebrating with the cup, that is always the real cup. That's by decree of the commissioner, that a player celebrating should always get the genuine cup.
Yeah, you could tell that it was the genuine one. Just watching it the other day, they did do a close up, and you could see the writing on it, like how old it was. Yeah,
I have seen a couple times where, and I can't not this year, but in the past, where these players, they grab it by the bottom, they grab it by the cup, and they do, and I swear it looks like they are about to lose it off, and I can just imagine if they lose the grip and it falls to the ice. I've never seen that.
I've never seen anybody do that.
I hope that doesn't ever happen. But
it did. Joey Kosher, when the Rangers won it, when it arrived to him, it was in two pieces, because they didn't do it the same way they do it now, where it's accompanied by that. So he went down to a local garage and had it soldered back together.
It showed up broken.
Yeah,
it did break. I knew it broke with the Rangers because they had it with the MTV Beach House. That thing was like everywhere.
And it worked for him long enough, and then of course they got it to the jeweler who did a much better repair. But I forgot. I don't know anything about welding or soldering.
No, I don't either.
But there's something that needs to be done when you're dealing with that form of metal, and Kosher was well aware of that. He did take it to a legitimate place, Kosher, but it still needed to be.
Listen, he was important for the regular season for them, so he definitely deserved his day with the cup. He kept a lot of room on the ice for some players.
I just did a podcast this morning. Someone had me on as a guest, and they had this lightning round where they asked me questions, and one of them was, who was a better fighter, Kosher or Probert? And I actually, that is not as easy of a question as people think it is. Because Probert was considered the heavyweight champion, and he really was. What I said is Kosher was the more dangerous adversary, because
no question about it.
Probert, he needed to be hit a few times to get into it. Like, he wasn't a natural fighter. Like, he didn't love it, But once he got into it, it was like you were fighting Mike Tyson.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, Domi, the game that I was at, where Domi beat up Probert at the Garden, like that was the first time I had really seen him get beat up, and that's why he did the belt thing, because he beat him up a couple of times. I don't think I've ever seen Kosher get beat up twice.
Well, that's what I was going to say about Kosher. He actually liked it, he was into it. So he was dangerous. Like, people didn't like fighting.
Well,
sure.
In 87, the Leafs played the Wings, and Joey Kosar was the antidote to Wendell Clark, because Joey Kosar is Wendell Clark's cousin. So he wouldn't fight him. So they put Kosar on Clark, and basically Kosar neutralized him. He wouldn't fight him, but he was able to sort of be physical with him, and that was sort of a key to the Wings winning that series in 7 games. Eck, you wanted to talk about other stuff you wrote this week?
Yeah. So one of the names that's out there that is an interesting one, I think, and hasn't been discussed that often, is Jamie Alexiak in Dallas, because the feeling is that he's a UFA, and the feeling is he's going to sign back with Dallas, and everybody's felt that way. He made, I think, $2 million last year, and when I read an article written out there, someone said, "Oh, you could probably get about the same kind of deal," and I think you could get a lot more than that from other teams. I've just from talking around, there's a lot of people who see him as maybe the hidden gem in this UFA defense market, and one of those teams being Montreal.
He was a little over 2, and he was supposedly available at the deadline, and that was one of the things that pissed off Kevin Cheveldayoff in Winnipeg, because he thought he had Alexiak, couldn't get him in the deal. And then we talked about Winnipeg's defense being not up to snuff when it came to the playoffs. That was because they couldn't consummate the deal to get Alexiak, but I don't know how much of it. To me, he strikes me as like another Ben Sherratt type of signing, where he might get $3.5 million at most, but he's limited. He's not a very good offensive player, and as we saw in the Stars run to the Cup final, he was a double-edged sword. He made a couple end-to-end rushes and made some impressive offensive plays, but then equally he was a liability at times defensively. So he gives that to you, and I don't know. I'm not sure.
He's played very well with who's he playing with? He plays with
It's Heiskanen. He was playing with Heiskanen.
Yeah, that's that there's something to that sort of situation when a guy has to have enough skill to play with a guy like that. He's done well in that situation. He has had some moments of where he shined offensively, and he hits. He really he kills people. Like he's one of those guys. He's like a Ratko Gudas type hitter.
But you have to be careful with players like that, because it's like Jaro Spacek or Matt Carl playing with Chris Pronger. Yeah, they play great with him, but then when they're playing with somebody else, you know how good of a defenseman or how not good they are.
Yes, but for teams who need like that need a guy to play with their top pairing guy, like I would even throw Philadelphia. Like this would be a good match perhaps for Provorov in Philly. You look for things like that. To me,
Alexia can't play anywhere on the top.
He's a second pairing guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can't put Alexia.
Talking to people around, there's the people. The opinion that people have of him is way higher than I thought it was, and
that would be.
I mean, I'll just say those people are wrong.
Yes, they're wrong.
Jamie Alexiak might be a good second pairing defenseman. And
I don't even know if he's a second pairing,
but probably better on a really good team. He's a bottom pairing guy.
I would still have him on the bottom pairing, even on the Flyers, because again, his foot speed is okay for a big guy. It's not great overall. He does hit, no question about it. He's got a little bit of puck movement, no question about it. But you can't put him. I mean, if you put him out there in the top 4, other teams are going to match up against that, and they're going to put their fastest line out there to exploit it. That's the problem with it. Maybe you can put him in top 4 at home. You can't do it on the road.
Kevin, thoughts?
Well, I'm with the guys on that. Yep. I don't know that he's the answer. Like, I think Dallas wants to re-sign him, but it's not like he's been an average or below average defenseman for a long time who had a little bit of size to him. He didn't suddenly wake up, and I'm not saying people wouldn't want him. Maybe everybody figures that, like you said, that, because, Gudas is a very valuable player.
Yeah.
He's a guy that when you add him to your mix, he gives you an element that changes your team. And maybe people feel that Alexiak could do that. But, I don't see people paying $4 million for him or something like that. I would figure, if he got 2 years at $5 million, or, if someone was willing to give him a third year. But how old is he now?
He's 28.
Okay.
He's 28, and his career high in points is 14. So,
yeah, I certainly don't see him as a top 4 guy. Like, how many minutes was he playing last year?
I think around 15 or 16.
As the season went on, it was more. Like he definitely became
because of injuries.
They had a more prominent player for them for sure. Injuries had a big part to do with that. But he also is. There are a lot of guys out there, like quote unquote offensive minded defensemen, but there aren't a lot of Alexiaks out there. Like,
okay, I will grant you that, but I'll just give you a scenario. If the Flyers make a trade, get somebody, and they get Alexiak, that's a win. If they walk away this summer with just Alexiak, that's a complete failure by Chuck Fletcher. That's the best way I could put it.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, but what about a team like Vegas, or a team like, they maybe could use a little more physicality on the defense?
I was off by a lot. Alexiak averaged 20 minutes and 29 seconds last year. So he played on their second pairing.
He did. He played on their second pairing and played well. And really, and honestly, I mean, and it was like everybody remembers a couple of the, he had that end-to-end rush in him a couple of times. He likes to do that.
Yeah. He could do it a little bit.
Which is something that, you usually don't see from guys or throwing the amount of hits he's throwing.
Well, the one thing about him though, like if you needed, like, look at, I mean, I want to go back to the Gudas comparison.
Yeah.
If you go look at how much he changed Florida, he did a lot, and Alexiak is what? He's got to be 260 pounds,
Yeah.
So
big guy.
He could given the opportunity. Yeah. How often did he hit last year? I guess.
Yeah, his hit totals are high.
He had how many hits?
I'm trying to find that out. Let me
Yeah,
Mike, dig into that one.
yeah, I'm looking.
I mean, I was surprised because I've been talking to a lot of teams about a lot of different defensemen, trying to get a feel for what they're thinking. And I didn't even have Alexiak on my rumor chart. Like he wasn't even on the rumor chart when I started up. And I think I just put him on there. If I may not have even added him yet, he's going to be added soon.
I mean, he could certainly help a team, especially if you didn't have that element on your team. So,
and a lot of teams don't. Like, I mean, this, and if enough teams don't, and he can help the team, then suddenly he does become a valuable player. And I think that's what we're wondering.
Does he hit his off? He doesn't hit his often as.
No, he does. I don't think he does hit. I mean,
he had 100. He had 148 hits last year. He led the.
That's significant. Yeah, because what did?
Yeah, so that's like that. He led the Stars, right? And
yep,
and Jim Nill likes him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they're going to re-sign him, so I don't think it's that a big of a deal. But that's quite a few hits.
I know.
Yeah, I'm looking to see where he ranked in the NHL. He was 15th in the league in hits.
Okay, I mean. There are a lot of teams that are complaining about not having that kind of defenseman, and there are not a lot of them. I mean, name a better defenseman than Alexiak that does that on the market right now.
Well, not on the market, but I mean, this is an indicator of where you saw the NHL in the conference final. You had the Islanders, you had Tampa, you had Montreal, you had Vegas. All had big, rugged defenses.
Yeah.
All of them did.
Here's what I'd say. You're convincing me for a couple. First of all, I thought he was 30. 28 to me makes the difference.
Yeah.
The fact that he's already had a year of playing 20 minutes per game. Let's see. I would never have guessed that that he had played 20 minutes last year. So
with Heiskanen.
With Heiskanen. But I could see.
You got to remember how much better Heiskanen is than even Provorov, like as far as skating wise, he covers a lot of ills.
Oh yeah, no, he's one of the top 2 or 3. I agree with you 100%.
And that's why I put him in the Ben Sherratt category, because Sherratt played with quality. I think he played with Trouba for a while. I think he played Bufflin for a while in Winnipeg, and he signed a deal with Montreal, and he was in the mid threes range. And he is what he is. He's a tough SOB on the blue line, but he's limited. He's not going to score you a ton of points.
If Sherratt was a UFA, if Ben Sherratt was UFA right now,
he'd probably get the same 3.5 prorated, or he'd probably get 3.5, 3.75 a year, because he's not going to score you points. And I think that's probably what Alexiak will get. And that's for teams that might be in their budget. But I don't think he's going to get $4.5 million. That's going to be left for guys like, I think Savard will get $4.5 to $5 million a year.
What do you think Goodrow? Just out of curiosity.
Well, who?
Well, he didn't have a lot of points. I think he had 20 points during the regular season, and there's no disputing what he did in the playoffs.
Right.
He had 6 goals and 14 assists, and he was making $9.25. I think he's going to make $3 million. I think he's going to make.
The reason I ask is because I saw a report that he's going to be asking for between $4 and $4.5 million.
Yeah.
That's no.
This is that you won a Stanley Cup thing, and Tampa could make a big mistake by putting too much money into him. But Tampa I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they will make that mistake.
Tampa basically can't sign any of their free agents. So.
Right.
Eck, I want to bring up the one that you wrote on. I think.
Yeah. I thought you might. We talked about it, like your text on. So that is the Hamilton, Dougie Hamilton, and he's a fascinating guy. We all know that it feels like the Carolina Hurricanes strategy is like, we want you, but if you really think you can get more than we can offer you, go ahead and try it, but then come back to us. That feels like the strategy with Hamilton. But I did hear from 2 people that Toronto was trying to acquire exclusive negotiating rights. And now we live in a world now where you can't just do that with like a conditional draft pick anymore. So you have to actually make a trade. You have to give them either a draft pick or a player or something like that.
Now, here's the facts. One, the Leafs have 6 picks in the next 2 years, a 2, a 5, and a 6 this year, and a 1, a 2, and a 7 next year. So they're not trading another draft pick unless they're damn sure they're going to be able to sign him. Second of all, I don't see where they can sign him. I mean, based on what we think Dougie Hamilton's going to get on the open market, if it's a sign and trade, and you're talking at least $7 million, probably $8 million, based on the year that he had, they can't sign him. So
unless they trade Morgan Riley.
Unless they trade Morgan Riley, but Morgan Riley's only making $5 million. So if you're paying Dougie Hamilton,
but he's not going to make $5 million on his next contract.
No. But
Nylander. I mean, Nylander could be moved too.
Well, and Kevin wrote something over the weekend regarding Nylander and Detroit, which, again, I take the word at face value. Maybe I shouldn't, but when Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas come out after the season and say, we love the core four and we're not planning on moving them. Okay, that doesn't mean you're not going to move one of them, but it doesn't sound like they're looking to move any of them. But
and to be honest, you can usually take the word of people. Rarely, and Eklund and I have often discussed this, rarely do people say something publicly and go against it just because it haunts them. That clip is played over and over again. So if they come out and say we're not going to do it, then they likely won't. And my story was about rumors. Friedman came out and said that they were interested. They being the Maple Leafs, they wanted Bertuzzi. Well, I believe Friedman. That was true. Yes. I'm sure Shanahan, who has a relationship with Yzerman, would call up and said we want Bertuzzi. And my point was, on social media, the discussion was it was going to be draft picks. Well, the Yzerman's not going to be interested in taking draft picks for Bertuzzi because he's trying to use draft picks to find players like Bertuzzi.
Right.
So you could say. You know what I mean? So how does that help him? Bertuzzi's still 26. So what I said was the only way I could see Yzerman doing it would be if you expanded it to be a multiplayer deal that would include Nylander, because I think the Red Wings would be very interested.
I'll tell you what,
who's a year younger.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's surprising to me. When I read that, I was really surprised.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I don't think the Leafs could do Hamilton, and that's simply because if you lose Riley, then Jake Muzzin is your only real defenseman who plays defense. That's it. Riley does too. You lose him though, and everybody else is an offensive defenseman with a minor in defense. And that's
Brody has become more of a defensive defenseman than maybe because his speed has dropped off.
I'll give you that one. So, but there's not enough of them on the team.
No. But I'll tell you this, Kevin. I'm coming to the fact that I think that the Red Wings are the likely destination for Zach Hyman, because they've got all the cap space in the world, and he played at Michigan and he played with Dylan Larkin, and he's young enough that he would be good when they're going to be good, and he's a good enough teammate and a leader in the locker room and a good guy that it makes all the sense in the world that he would go to Detroit. So I mean, I've heard Edmonton is a possibility, and then Edmonton's interested, but I think he's going to end up with the Red Wings. Yeah,
I mean, it's certainly possible, and then that it's gotten people to say, well, if they're going to sign Hyman, if they're going to acquire Hyman, then they can trade Bertuzzi. So I don't know. As I've said many times, Steve Yzerman is a very, very difficult read.
The team I watch out with Hyman, and I've heard Edmonton for sure likes him, but the team I really think you have to watch out for Hyman is the team that can talk to him first, which is the Seattle Kraken. I've heard that that's a team that could sit there and really
they could offer him an 8-year deal if they wanted to.
Yeah, but then he's trading a longer amount of time for a chance to win the cup for the money, and I don't know if he's at that point in his career yet.
But what's the rule with regard to if you sign someone's free agent? Don't you do you not? Are you allowed to take their first? How does it?
No. When on July 28th, first I see the way I interpret it is Seattle can offer him an 8-year deal.
Okay,
that's part of the agreement. Whereas like Toronto after July 28th can only sign him to a 7-year deal because they have to sign him before July 28th.
Yeah, actually, I agree with
Seattle can talk to him before all of that, right? Like from what I understand, like the Seattle has this sort of window to talk to UFA.
They do have a window, yes.
Yes.
Before everybody else.
Yeah.
So
I think it's it might be the 5-day negotiating window, but that they're the only team that can do it.
By the way,
that went away. It's baffling to me that the NHL got rid of that. It worked well. Everybody liked it. What was the point of this? Why did we get rid of it?
Because they wanted us to have something to write about.
Right.
I mean, I agree it's better for us, but I'm just saying from their perspective.
I got to throw this out to Kevin too, Kev. I thought about this, and Funky said in the check room, why can't you have Bertuzzi and Hyman? I mean, it's not like Bertuzzi's really better at the second line than he would be at top line anyhow.
I agree with you completely. I'm just saying people have taken that and said, then they will trade Bertuzzi. If they got Hyman, they can trade.
Yeah, I think they would keep both because they're much harder to play against if you have them both.
Now we have to mention this before we and maybe we'll talk about projections for the
we'll talk about them
tomorrow. Pierre Maguire, formerly of NBC, now has been has been hired by the Ottawa Senators as the senior VP of player development. I'm not sure what that exactly means, but the first thing I reacted when I heard that was, wow, like Turner or ESPN didn't want him, but apparently
I don't think you could be more wrong in that. I really don't think you could be more wrong in that, Mike. I think that honestly, the reality is that Pierre Maguire is very valuable to TV. People love him. Right. They would definitely grab him. Pierre Maguire wants to work for a team. Like it's clear as day.
Well,
he's made that clear as day for years. I mean, his name has been out there in rumors forever. Sure. Sometimes I think just to try to get his name out there in rumors, even. I think he wants it. He wanted to work for a team. I think he was done doing it.
I agree with you, Eck. I just don't know what he can do for the Ottawa Senators unless he's just going to learn the business and move his way up. But initially, like when Melnick says, hey, it's great to get him on the team. Initially, I don't know if what he can really do for the Ottawa Senators because they have trouble with player development as is. Like they draft well, but again, in 2 or 3 years, if they're not doing anything, everybody's going to look at their player development and say, we got a problem here because we keep drafting guys.
Like his personality. Like or dislike his personality. Pierre is very connected in the hockey world.
And what is that going to do for?
No, but it's very connected even in the scouting world. Like I think scouting wise, he knows more.
He's been a scout, so I give you that.
He knows more coaches at junior level. He knows more. He knows everybody. He's one of those guys who knows everybody.
I think what you want in that position is a guy with opinion. You want a guy who won't be afraid to say to Pierre Dorion, guys, our scouts say we don't like this guy. I think there's a lot of potential to him. Or you want to go the other way around. When the Senators are looking for make a trade and they're talking prospects, saying, I would move this guy because I don't think he's going to make it. And those kind of things. You're just a counsel and thing, but vice president of player development, like he's not going to be on the ice trying to make these guys better.
No, he's not. But what I'm saying is, so I get what you're saying, Kev, but it's not like he's had a lot of time or any time to look at anybody in this draft this year. He's taken the word of others. And so I don't know how much he can help me at the draft table this year.
I think he'll know the players that they've drafted.
Previous players.
I also think that he's the kind of guy that if we had him on, if I was running a team, I had him on my team, I would be like, Pierre, call up the coach of that guy. Tell him find out what he's really like.
You're absolutely right, Eklund. He could call any of these players coaches, and they all call him in. When people say they don't like him, what they're saying is I don't like his style.
Right.
I'm tired of hearing about what youth team Killer played for. That kind of thing. So. But I think he's been an assistant coach on a championship team. He's been a coach of the Hartford team. He's been a scout. He's tried to get a lot of different jobs. He's come, been in among the final interviews and all that. So I think he'll do a good job. I mean, I think we've learned from agents becoming GM that you don't necessarily have to follow the traditional model. Like I know some people have said on social media that should have been a scout that got promoted to that. Like you can't parachute into there. Well, why can't you? If he knows hockey, he knows the players, and he'll learn about the Senators, and he'll be up to speed in no time. I don't know that he's going to be great at. you never know. But
it's really
he's
impossible.
certainly qualified.
I mean, I'll say this
Yeah,
about him. He obviously, I like the fact that people have opinions about him on TV. I like that I think that his job is somebody that you should have an opinion about. Like there are, as much as I like Brian Boucher sometimes, and he's a friend, but he's sometimes very vanilla for me when he does that kind of stuff. I think he could be better. He could give more opinions. Yes, and also just personally, I have to say Pierre has been nothing but kind to me. Like whenever I've been around him and talked to him and stuff like that, he has the time of day. Since I started, he had the time of day for me. Just one of those nice. He's
one of the most positive people I've ever met.
He is. He doesn't take shots at people. He doesn't talk down about people. He's not like the kind of guy you get together and he'll say, "Oh, this guy's an idiot" or whatever. If you know he's talking behind someone's back, he's talking about you behind someone's back type person. He's not that kind of guy. He's just
It's all a question of style, and people I like Ray Ferraro, and
I like Ray Ferraro too.
So but there's some breaking news here before we end the show. Both Elliot Friedman and Darren Drager are reporting sources indicating that the Oilers and Blackhawks are making progress towards a Duncan Keith deal. No specifics, excuse me, but the process is moving along, and it could be consummated by the weekend. So we like that. Yeah,
I love when they use
Ken Holland's track record of trading for older players will continue.
Yeah, that's another. I liked Mike Hughes' recompense earlier this week, which was one of my favorite words. And consummated for a player trade is also.
It feels really sexy. It feels like man, they're going to get together and they're going to consummate this deal. All right. Here we go. That's all the time we have for today, folks. I
invested in a thesaurus. What can I say?
I like it. You are nothing if not a thesaurus, Mike. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all